very much for coming along. It's a wonderful turnout on a afternoon session. Last night it was at 6 p.m. and they were giving out white wine and red wine and beer. So today it's water and coffee. My name's Martin McGeough. I'm a podiatrist. I'm the founder and medical director in Firefly Custom-Made Foot Orthoses. I've got some guests and colleagues that are going to help me do this very short demo. So what we want to do is spend 5 minutes on Plaster of Paris casting, 5 minutes on foam box impression taking, 5 minutes on 3D scanning. So we want to show you some of the tips that we do to make things efficient and effective. Okay, so introduce some of the people. First up then is Sarah. Sarah's a podiatrist recently out of NUIG in Galway. So she's joined our clinical division. So in Ireland we would have 7 clinical practices where we compete with physiotherapists who typically provide custom-made foot orthoses for sports medicine and orthopedics. So as a podiatric profession, we're trying to move into the direction of saying, this is kind of what we should be doing. So Sarah is going to be the model for the Plaster of Paris casting. And then I've got my clinical partner, Greg Galanders. And then I've got my colleague, Julian Livingstone. So Greg's going to do the Plaster of Paris casting. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a prone casting. And what I'm going to do initially is lift this up, this leg here, the foot obviously that I'm not casting, and I'm going to tilt it to the side. What this does is it raises the contralateral hip of the side that you're going to cast. Automatically the foot on the casting side falls into subtalar neutral as long as the knee's in the frontal plane. So keep the knee pretty much straight and it falls into subtalar neutral. Now what you've got to focus on is then locking that mid-tarsal joint or positioning the foot wherever you want it to be. Okay, so in this case, Greg will lock it by putting his thumb on the 4th and 5th met head, moving in the sagittal plane, not abducting the foot, just in the sagittal plane, stabilizes the lateral column. Now, before we move on to that, we've got a basin with some water in it, obviously. We've got a very small sponge to clean the patient's foot. We don't allow the patient to clean the foot or you will have plaster everywhere. We have a towel and we've got some plaster. Now, the plaster is one piece from the big toe to the little toe. It's folded over quite significantly, so therefore it's quite strong and it's going to be a shallow cast. About 90% or 95% of custom-made foot orthoses are made by scanning a cast. If you need to do a full cast, you will add an additional piece of plaster around the forefoot, and that would be for manual manufacture. So that would be things that would be like Blake inverted devices, road traffic accidents, amputation accommodations, something that's pretty radical. The majority are made with computerized technology. So what we're going to do now is just simply run the plaster through the water. We're going to keep as much plaster in the bandage. We don't want to wring it out into the basin, and we're going to just smooth the pattern. So Greg's just going to apply it. Normally we would have gloves. Sorry, we didn't bring any, Greg. And he just takes his time. The water happens to be cold. We would normally use warm water so it sets quicker. Now everybody panics and rushes this. This is a very simple process and you've more time than you think. And the key thing is to get a good representation of the anatomy. Why do we want a good representation of the anatomy? How do foot orthoses work? They work by altering moments of force. How do we alter moments of force? Shape is the key thing. After that, stiffness. Stiffness of the materials that we choose in the design of the foot orthoses. It's the deformation characteristics of the materials plus the shape that create changes in moments of force. That offloads soft tissue, bony tissue, and allows them to heal. Okay, so think about moments of force, kinetics rather than kinematics. Okay, so you use your whole hand to just smooth the bandage so there's no pattern of the bandage left in the plaster. What he's doing now is, foot is at 90 degrees relative to the leg. He's locked the mid-tarsal joint. If needs be, he plantar flexes the first ray to put all the met heads on the same plane. So if there's a forefoot supinatus, in other words, the forefoot is a slight varus angle and it's soft tissue, it can be corrected in the casting, which means it's unique to Sarah's anatomy. So you don't rely then on software or plaster technicians to create the medial longitudinal arch. It's actually her arch. So if you can do that, it's a fabulous starting point in terms of the shape and the fit to the foot. Feel free to get up and walk around if you want to see exactly what he's doing, folks. But it's a pretty simple process and you don't end up with plaster on your windowsill or up your windows, which is a challenge at times. So it can be done quite simply and neatly and non-messy. So one piece of plaster, thick fold over so you get strength in the cast. This little tip is quite good as well, just helps. Now the cold water just takes a little bit longer to set. How are we doing now, Greg? Is it nearly ready to come off? Not yet, okay. So in the likes of the lab industry, we would receive impressions in Plaster of Paris, foam and 3D scans. And 3D scans come in many formats. And it's all about then the accuracy of each of those. And you can do good ones of each of them and you can do poor ones of each of them. And we see it all. So rubbish in, rubbish out. Okay. So you see how much time we've waited for this to actually set, and everybody rushes the casting. Take your time, you've got so much time to get a really good impression of the foot. And as a podiatric profession, this is really something we need to be nailing. We need to be producing the best data in terms of 3D data of the foot, if that's the route you want to take. Okay, is it ready to come off now? Now as he's starting to take this off, the next thing that I would do here is I would take the cast, I would put it into a microwave and I would cook it on full high for 1 minute. Take it out, it's ready to be shipped. The number of casts that we get put into boxes that are damp, and then the dampness goes into the cardboard collapses, and we get a flat cast in the lab. We then have to contact the practitioner and say, don't pack damp casts. So we get the cast off. Sometimes I just go around the edge just to make it nice and neat, and then you've got a really good impression in terms of this foot. What's really important is the transition from the heel at the talonavicular area particularly. So it's really nice. We also then have a good MLA here, but it's really the inside data that we want. All one piece, into the microwave, 1 minute, done. Now some people take the cast and now they're going to scan the cast and send us the data. So it depends what you want to do. Because you'll see when we do the demo on the iPad, sometimes it's a little difficult to get the foot where you want it. So still there's a tendency to want to do the casting. But that's it, very simple. And you can see not a lot of mess, very quick. You can probably cast 2 feet, I would say in 5 minutes, if you've got it all set up. So it's just making sure you've got the right length of the plaster, fold it over enough, run it through the water, put it on the foot, smooth it in, get it in the right position, done. So it is actually quite simple. It's quite easy, but it just takes a little bit of practice. Okay, so that's that. Okay, what we'll do now is move on to the foam impression. Okay. Okay. Yeah. The foam impression is, we get a lot of foam impressions in because it's quick and easy to use, and particularly in the regional rehabilitation units with the military, they all use foam impressions. And again, it's a slightly different technique, obviously, to the plaster. So Julian's going to demonstrate that.
Okay, so first thing, push and pull. So if you lift your foot up, you're taking knee to 90 degrees.
So what he's put in really is the hip at 90 degrees, the knee at 90 degrees, and he wants the ankle at 90 degrees. 90, 90, 90.
Most important, don't push.
So he wants the patient to completely relax and not to push. He's going to put the force on the knee. He's got his right foot across the top of the foot, really kind of trying to keep that in subtalar neutral again and to stabilize the hind foot to the midfoot. He's got his left hand on top of the knee and he's going to push directly down. And he's pushing on the lateral border of the foot in a sense to try and create a lateral force that locks the mid-tarsal. So you can see what he's doing now. Foot's gone into the foam from the lateral side of the foot. Okay. So now he's going to put the toes down into the foam. You keep talking, Julian, and I'll keep, yeah.
Basically, so you're now correcting the forefoot, plantar flexing the first ray.
He's plantar flexing the first ray now. Some people will actually dorsiflex the hallux to activate the windlass mechanism and get the plantar fascia appearing in the foam. Just depends what, again, you want to achieve.
Making sure that the clearance is there.
Sometimes the challenge here is that you can flatten the foot. So that idea of putting it on the lateral border is quite important and making sure you load it evenly.
And you're not pushing the knee down. down, you're pushing the foot down.
Okay, you're pushing the foot down, not the knee. And again, this can create a good contour between the heel going up into the talonavicular area.
And the way you check is to make sure the heel and the fifth ray are at the same level.
Okay, so Julian's saying the way to check that you're happy with it is that you look at the level, plantar level of the heel and the plantar level of the forefoot, and that they're level, that you haven't created that type of an alignment. So again, you can see how quick that is and how simple. Now again, when it comes to the lab, different cast dressings required here. That's essentially semi-weight bearing. So how we do heel expansions, soft tissue expansions varies from one to the other. And again, we give off an offering of skin type 1, minimum, moderate, maximum. You can actually use cast dressings to alter moments of force. So as an example, a really significant pes cavus, lateral unstable ankle. So they're moving into a supination position and constantly going over in their ankle. You could decide I want a skin cast dressing on the lateral side of your device. So that means the orthotic is really tight to the anatomy on the lateral side. And you could ask for a maximum cast dressing on the medial side. That means there's more plaster added, so we drop the orthotic from the foot. So tight on the lateral, less on the medial. You've now created a pronation moment of force simply by altering your cast dressing, rather than thinking 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. So it depends what you're trying to achieve, and there's many ways to do it. One of them is cast dressing. Okay, so that's that very simply. What we'll do now is just show you a 3D scanning version. This is pretty new. This is a little gadget that goes on to the iPad. Prior to this, we invested in Delcam technology, and we bought scanners that were maybe €7,500 each. We then bought 20 SharpShape scanners at 3,000 sterling each. And now you can buy this on amazon.co.uk for £379. You can buy a £40 app and you can go 3D. And we have tested this against the other scanners, and if you use it slowly and properly, it's spot on. So the technology is moving on very quickly and the prices are dropping. So this now is an affordable piece of kit that's portable. The other ones were quite big, and you need to have pretty big muscles like Greg here to be able to carry this thing around. So this is a simple approach to taking a 3D scan. You can use it to scan the foam box, you can use it to scan the cast, or you can use it to scan the foot. So again, what we're going to do is same concept, contralateral hip, turn this over, make sure the knee's in the frontal plane, and when you lock it, the subtalar will be in neutral. Now, a little bit of a challenge here is because I can't hold the foot this time. So we're working with an engineer at the minute with a little gadget that might go across here and be adjustable for girth of your calf, come down the lateral side of the foot, lock that foot at 90 degrees, and then lock the mid-tarsal, a little lever that comes across to plantar flex the first ray, because we're trying to get all the met heads in the same plane, and then that's the starting point from where we do our prescription. So what we'll do here is get you just hold it in that position if you can, Sarah. Okay, got it. So you have to, Sarah's a podiatrist. She knows that I want the foot at 90 degrees. So it's much easier. It's harder for the patients. And what they sometimes do here, you can relax again, they fire the extensor hallucis longus tendon, or they fire the tibialis posterior tendon, and they create a slightly higher forefoot supinatus angle. So you've got to watch for that, but bear in mind that when we get the scan in, we bring all met heads to the vertical. So if they exaggerate it by 2 or 3 degrees, we're going to bring it to vertical anyway. We apply the prescriptions from that point. So I'll demonstrate this. You open up your iPad. On it, there's a little app that you open. Somebody's hand's being scanned here. So you get an option, new order. You have to put in the surname of your patient. And we'll just make that up, a few letters, enter. Then asks you for the left or right foot. So this is a right foot, so I press right. Now, you may have to gather around for this bit. There's a little box that appears on the iPad, and you've got to get the foot inside it, and you've got to be at the right distance. If I come too far, you can see that really what I'm looking for is a full color on the foot. Now I want to hold this nice and steady, and it fills in the data. And then what you do is you can move round to the medial side of the foot, and it starts to scan. Take your time, loads of time, and just let the data fill in. And then you can come round to the right side. You can see that it's actually scanning right up the leg, so it's incorporating the medial and lateral malleolus. So sometime in the future you'll be able to make AFOs from this technology. Now what I'm going to do is just move up to the posterior aspect of the heel. I want to get enough heel depth based on whatever design of orthotic I want to make. So then I'm going to stop it, and what it does is it creates essentially a digital plaster of Paris model. Okay, so what I tend to do now is I would have a plaster like the one that was there, and I would say to the patient, okay, this is what we used to do. This is the digital version of it. Here is your big toe, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Here's your arch, here's your heel. That data up there I don't need because I'm not making an AFO, so that will be cut off. As long as I've got enough depth around the heel in terms of heel cup depth, I'm ready to go. So as long as I'm happy with the quality of that, it's done. Now the other thing you can do here is you can put a color view on it. It says applying the magic, and at this point it applies a skin tone, and it's essentially nearly a photograph of the bottom of Sarah's foot, and you'll see her little tattoo appears in a moment. So what this tells you then is you can now mark on the foot 3rd MTP, 4th MTP, make a lesion accommodation for that, and you know then that it's spot on, it can be accurate for it. And then you can show this to the patient. So it's pretty cool. There's also an X-ray version here, which is again just it's another way of presenting it. So you go back here, you can start then onto the other foot. If I had said save, it just says email. You put in the email and it goes. And it's automatically then in the lab. So what we do is we just send it straight to the lab. And the file name, so it would say Sarah O'Connell, right foot, bang. What I then do is I'm writing a prescription. I take a photograph of it using my phone and I email the photograph of the prescription form. The prescription form, we have a digital clickable order form, but for me it's too slow. I then have to go back in and start typing in patients' names, body weight, shoe size, all of that. So I just take a photograph, bang. But so that's it, that's how simple it is. There's still some limitations with it, getting the foot in the position you want to keep it in, but it's pretty good. So any questions?
Can you work with 2 people and that person holds it totally neutral if the hand was in the way?
Yeah, so question is, can you work with 2 people? Can one person hold the foot and another person do the scanning? Absolutely, yes. Because the software allows you to cut away excess. And I mean, if we design a little gadget that holds the foot where we want it, then we'll have to cut that out. So in terms of software. So it's a big change from, €7,500 scanners to 3,000 sterling to £379.
So you train your receptionist to just do that?
Well, you could train your receptionist to do that. Yeah, today there was people talking about mounting it on a little trolley that you could just move it around. And others were talking like the dental lamps that come out of the ceiling, could you have it on that it rotates? And these little scanners are getting better and better. I mean, every 6 months they come out with a new one. And the quality of the scan and the technology in it is getting better and better. Very soon, of course, Apple have already started banning all these scanning companies. And the new iPhone 7 has 2 cameras in it. So the iPhone 8, when it arrives, may well have a 3D scanner in it, as well as in your iPad. You probably won't have a little gadget attached to your iPad. It will be a 3D scanner. That's where it's going. Then it'll need to connect to apps that connects to the podiatric profession that allows us to manufacture. So it's an extra little tool that allows you to, and by the way, you're not tied to any lab. You can go wherever you want with that. You send the email where you want. So it's open architecture.
It's your app that you're using?
No.
That's an open app?
Open app. It's an open app. I don't think you should be closed and use any, forced to use any lab. Use whichever lab you want.
Does it only work on the Apple format or
That's a good question. I think it only works on the Apple, but if you check, it's called a structure sensor. So if you check their website, they may have an Android version available too. You normally just have to give them what type of iPad you have, and then they tell you this is and it may well be the same for a different tablet.
So you just phone Apple about
It's not an Apple product, actually. It's Structure Sensor. So look that up. Structure Sensor. But again, you can buy them on Amazon. I looked last night, £379. You just need to know what specification of an iPad you have, so you get the right app or the right gadget. Okay.
What's the app?
AMOS, Orthotic Manufacturing Operating System. Let me just check that for you. 4321. Sorry, AOMS. AOMS is the app, which is Automated Orthotic Manufacturing System. They were the guys that actually sold us the 20 scanners at $3,000 each. So they've abandoned that now and are making apps. So that's how it's all moving on. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you very much, folks.